tossed out of the territory by his mother. Now, James would like to know, will some females come and toss these males out? No, James, absolutely not. But once these males get to this age, they decide where they're going to go. The only thing that would make these males move would be a larger coalition of older males. So nothing's going to move these fellows at all, especially not a pride of females. The females will be very nervous of them, especially we know that these 5 have already killed one of the Nkuhuma lionesses in a dispute over some buffalo. So there's definitely no chance that any lionesses are going to throw these chaps out. Just a quick recap for everybody, if you perhaps just joined us. I know Maggie is in Australia, so maybe she's just got home from work. There are a couple of you probably at work watching, and then there are of course various others who will be just about to go to bed. I'll tell you what happened. Earlier this morning at 4:30 Central African time, there was a great wave in Great Street from my slumbers, and it was being killed. No doubt about it. We knew that it was being killed. There's a Gari Dam. Not sure. He's certainly old and infirm, or he's now no longer old and infirm. He's now dead, of course. And you have correctly surmised that we're quite close to the new hyena den. It is quite close to here. And certainly there was quite a lot of hyena shouting this morning. But once these 5 males came into the area, the hyenas again chose discretion's the better part of valor and disappeared off. Doesn't that look like a nice breakfast, Andrew?
Yummy.
Bush just carries on. You know, it's so interesting to me that this buffalo has experienced the ultimate trauma, being killed by lions, and around the
feel like my work.
Really?
Did you say Nkomo to me?
Nikomele.
Dolo te wena ndiphela tingala ndiphele titila uvulu kunkomo.
Inkomo ngoku, he can see it.
When we talked around, he said to me, you must have the plan to come here. So I said, no, I will give a message. So I was asking him to say thank you to me because I said,
we're going to nip back while we're watching this lion foul himself in the innards of a buffalo. We're going to head across to quarantine the leopard, not the clearing, with Scott, and I think he looks like he might be about to move. So enjoy the wonderful spotted cat, and we'll see you a bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and I think finally the quarantine male has decided to head off to go and feed on some of this duiker. He's just had a quick toilet stop, and he is heading directly towards the base of the tree where the kill is. So let's watch closely, get ready to get some screenshots. I'm hoping you're going to be able to capture some of him jumping up into the tree. And what a wonderful morning you've been having with James and the Birmingham lion. And now it's time for the leopard to show you its feeding capabilities. It's a much smaller kill and a much smaller cat, but aren't we so lucky to be seeing all of this? Watch closely, everyone. He's about to jump up into this tree. There are some guests in a vehicle just on the opposite side of us. It's as close as they can get, but I'm glad that they are now going to be able to get a good view of him finally. They've been sitting there waiting very patiently. I just want to try and possibly get us a little bit closer. No, I think he's going to jump now. Get ready to watch the jump. Looks like he's scratching his claws beforehand, which helps sharpen and maintain him. There he goes. And you'll notice the kill just on his right hand side, on the left of the screen. And that's a kill he made last night, if any of you have just tuned in recently. And James and Brian were in this area trying to keep an eye on him. It's very thick here, and they actually were alerted to him making the kill as they heard the duiker let off its distress call when it was caught. And MJ is obviously another viewer who's just tuned in and would like an update on how far away quarantine is from the Birmingham coalition, and is he in fact on Djuma? Yes, he's on the central parts of Djuma, probably about 1 kilometer from the Birmingham coalition. And interestingly enough, the last time that he was seen on Safari Live was, I think, with James, and he had a kudu kill just south of our boundary on Gowrie, Main. And when we went back one morning to follow up on him there was tracks of the Birmingham coalition heading straight into that kill, and he would have come across them and probably run away to avoid them. But I know for a fact that he has encountered them at least once before, and probably more times than that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and reposition. We're not in the best spot here, so hold on. We may need to rock forwards and backwards a few times, although these vehicles are really incredible in terms of what they can do. Hold on one second, everyone. We parked at a bit of an awkward angle here, and Brian's hanging off the back of the vehicle. So I'm just going to reassess my initial plan. There we go. That should be a bit better. Now, as he continues to feed on this duiker carcass, what we may see him doing is actually bringing it back down onto the ground. It can be quite awkward and difficult for them to get to the parts of the antelope that they're trying to consume. So that is something that may happen. But for now, he looks like he's repositioned it into a slightly better spot. I wonder if and how many hyena may have been alerted to this kill but been unable to steal it from him, because he did cleverly hoist it into the tree. And what I found is that quite often with hyena, they may come past a leopard kill, notice that it's not worth hanging around, and then continue. And then what they probably do is they return a little bit later and see if any scraps have fallen down. So they'll possibly keep checking in on the progress here. But once the kill is up in a tree, they will not always lie below in weight. So that is something that he may have experienced happening last night. Well, aren't we all so lucky to be sitting here after your wonderful sighting with James and the Birmingham males feeding on a buffalo. Now we've got a leopard up on a jackalberry tree feeding on its duiker kill. And Laura in Alabama's asked a great question. She would like to know if leopards will ever jump out of trees onto their prey, and believe it or not, they do that, Laura, and it has been captured several times. Oh, look at that great view. Beautiful. Sorry, Laura. Back to you now. They certainly do jump out of trees, and it has been documented here in the Sabi Sands. I've seen some footage of leopard jumping out of marula trees onto impala. Only about 3 or 4 meters, so not a very, very high drop. But I did recently see a video clip of a leopard jumping out of a tree. I'm not sure exactly what kind of tree it was, but my estimate is that it was anywhere between 8 to 10 meters high that this leopard fell directly down onto an impala. It's incredibly high, 8 to 10 meters, basically 4 or 5 regular sized doors stacked up on top of one another. That's how high that leopard fell, down onto its prey. And at one point it was actually heading, there's a photographic sequence as well as a video sequence. The photographic sequence helps you to see that at one point he is actually directly vertical with his nose pointing down and his tail up in the air, and at the last moment he somehow managed to flare his body up kind of like a parachute and then land down on the impala, who got a huge fright, understandably, and sadly it did not get away. It was the leopard's lucky day. Road, and I'm glad that he's here to enjoy this with us now. Oh, is he going to drop it? He could very well at any point now, or like I said, he may just bring it down onto the ground to feed where he may be a bit more comfortable. With a smaller kill like this, as long as it is at the base of the tree, if he does hear anything approaching, he can very quickly get it back up there. Well, even though I've just said that, and it would be very easy for him to get the kill into this first fork of the tree, we've had a great observation through from Jennifer in Toronto, and she's pointed out that if a male lion or any lion was to get to this tree, it would quite easily be able to get into it. And you're completely correct, it's not very high at all, and a lion would with relative ease be able to get into that first fork. The thing is though, Jennifer, as soon as the leopard saw the lions coming, it may decide to abandon the kill where it is, or even try and hoist it further up into this tree, as there are a few more forks and perches within this tree where the leopard would be able to get it out of a lion's reach. It would actually be hilarious if some hyena came onto the scene, because they would be jumping up at the base of the tree trying to get into that dike, and they would get close, but I don't think close enough. But good point, Jennifer, and so thanks for sending through that observation. It would be certainly quite easy for a lion to get into this tree. And on the topics of lions and their climbing abilities, it's often going up that's not too difficult for the lions. It's coming down that they can become a little bit clumsy and even injure themselves. I've seen footage of a lioness trying to jump out of a tree, and she miscalculated it and actually broke her back and was paralyzed lying in the tree. That would be a terrible scenario to witness. But it is important to know that they can injure themselves when climbing. And Georgianne in Illinois is also picked up, or is on the same wavelength as me, and has mentioned that the diker's legs are hanging down, possibly low enough for a hyena to reach it, but if a hyena did come onto the scene, I think Quarantine would be able to make a plan in getting it a little bit higher up into one of the other forks in the tree. I may do is try and reposition one more time, and that's so that we can give Lex the opportunity to come into the spot where we are and get a bit closer to the action. I'll just wait for him and actually just see, but in the meantime I can answer a question from Tammy in Seattle, and good to have you with us, Tammy. Tammy's asked and noticed that the Birmingham Coalition went for the organs first. They are typically the softest and easiest parts of a prey item to feed on, yet quarantine appears to be consuming the rump and starting at the back end of the carcass, and it does depend on the individual leopard and scenario as to what exactly they will do. But I do see that there's quite a lot of the stomach contents hanging out of the belly, and that means he has kind of disemboweled it, and he may very well have actually fed on some of the organs already. It looks like we don't need to reposition because Lex has managed to get himself into a good spot without me having to help him. But I am going to just move forward a meter or two back into our original spot. There we go. But good question, Tammy. And in my history, I've noticed that it will depend on not only the individual leopard or lion that you are viewing, but also the individual's event of a different kill. They may vary their behavior from time to time. Brian, did he feed on the organs yesterday evening? So, according to Brian, Tammy, even though it may appear that he hasn't fed on the organs, he did. And as he repositions the kill now, that big bag that you can see dangling below the carcass is what looks like the rumen. So all of the grass and leaves that the duiker would have been feeding on is still in that bag. And sometimes what leopards will do is feed on the casing of that bag, but obviously the vegetable matter inside is of no interest to the leopard.
Yes. There's three here that Grant is on the other side of the riverbed further away, so I think we can come in.
And Kevin on Twitter, you were right, that, as I say, is the stomach content. There's a little bit of fur that he's just plucked off that you may have seen falling down. It's always funny business watching him now. He's trying to get that bit of fur off his tongue, but not very easy for him. I think it looks like he may be trying to actually chew off that bag of stomach contents, and it may plop to the ground at any stage. He really is in an awkward position here, and you can just see his tail flicking up from side to side, trying to help him keep balance. Watch closely here. He's eating the lining, and he's trying to squeeze the content within that stomach lining out before he consumes that. And I'm told you saw a bit of that happening last night, kind of like he's sucking on a piece of spaghetti. And Tammy, it looks to me like he has finished off the majority of the main organs, the heart and the lungs. So it looks like he too, just like the Birmingham Coalition, did do that. Well, this is probably not going to be very pretty to watch, so if you are a bit squeamish, I would suggest maybe coming back in a few minutes, especially if he does continue to try and consume the stomach lining. But it looks like he's started chewing on the rib cage now, and you'll probably hear his teeth crashing through those bones. Oh, there goes the stomach content. And it's often that thud that attracts any hyena who may be lying nearby. And the fact that none have arrived now will confirm to us that there isn't one hiding off in the surrounding area. So as you can see, it's not an easy job consuming this carcass, and a question has just come through from San Diego. Hello Reme, good to have you with us. Reme has asked if leopards, or if I've ever seen a leopard choking whilst feeding on a kill, and I haven't, Reme. It's an interesting question, and I'm sure it does happen from time to time, but it isn't something that I remember seeing. Maybe we will get lucky now and get to see Quarantine make a fool of himself, but I don't think it will happen for that often, and considering how often I have seen leopards feeding on kills, I haven't seen it happen even once. So I don't think it's something likely to happen. Lex, have you ever seen leopards choking on kills? Okay, so Lex, who's far more experienced than I am, has also not seen that happen, but I'm fairly certain it could well have happened somewhere along the line, as even these animals do make mistakes. I think a possible reason why no hyena are here, or potentially didn't even find Quarantine with this kill last night, is because there was so much action unfolding with the Birmingham Coalition. It could have possibly diverted their attention elsewhere. And I'm not sure if James did mention, but the kill and the Birmingham Coalition were incredibly close to the new hyena den site. But the hyena would be unwise to try and bully the Birmingham Coalition off their kill, because I don't think that is going to be a likely scenario that they could pull off. Well, speaking of the Birmingham Coalition and the hyena den, James would like to give you an update on both of those two things and his plans for the rest of the morning. So we're not going to go anywhere, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma, where we have left the kill because the kill has been left by the animals that killed it, that being the Birmingham 5. And we're here with the one with the scarry eye, who I believe the Twitterverse has named Scrapper. Now, I'm not convinced about that name myself, but if that is what you choose to call him, so be it. That is what we will call him. I do know that the chaps south of us on Nkoro have referred to him as Tsotsi, and the Tsotsi is a sort of it's a South Africanism for a sort of what should we say, Andrew? A criminal, a thug. Yes, exactly, a thug. That's exactly it. So I'll let you choose what we decide to call him. The most obvious thing to call him, of course, would be, Andrew?
Murderer.
No, not murderer. Scarface would be the obvious one. But I'm more than happy to go with Scrapper or Tsotsi, dependent on the Twitterverse's opinion. Now, we're sitting here with him. The other four seem to be just to the other side of the kill. This is exactly where I said I saw something flicking in the bush, and it was his tail flicking here. So we're not, the kill is just sort of over in that direction over there, and the other three, there were three of them still sleeping around there, and I think, I don't know, there may be four there now. It's difficult to tell where they're all moving, but they're around the place. And the buffalo has still got a huge amount of meat left on it, so I don't think that they're going to go anywhere. They do seem to be highly efficient at taking hapless buffalo down. And I know that they had another buffalo kill about 3 days ago, just south of us. So they're very good at doing that sort of thing. So, very nice question. I am going to move the vehicle just now, but before I do that, it'll just make sense if I answer this question first. Erica, you're a new viewer, and it's wonderful to have you on board. Thank you for your time, and thank you especially for commenting. You're in California, where obviously the lion population isn't quite what it is here at Djuma, and you want to know if I'm scared sitting here in front of that recumbent and sleeping lion. Erica, I'm not at the moment. Andrew, are you scared?
No.
No. Erica, this is not because lions aren't ferocious predators and apex predators, but it is for two reasons. And the first reason is that because we're on a vehicle, let's go with the other reason first. All animals out here see us as the apex predator. So their natural reaction to human beings is not one of them seeing us as prey, but rather as seeing us as predators. Now that's very important to understand, especially in Africa. They've evolved with people, these animals, and so they are naturally afraid of us. It's not the same as in, say, if you were walking in the Arctic and you came across a polar bear. Polar bears didn't evolve with people, and so they don't have the same natural fear of people, and they will actively hunt human beings. Lions are not the same, except in exceptional circumstances. So that's the one thing to note. The second thing to note is that that lion is not reacting to us as though we're threatening it, because we're in a vehicle. And while I'm pretty sure that, it can see our faces and it recognizes us, as soon as we stand up and we adopt the bipedal human posture, we become a threat to the lion, and the lion would then so if I was to get out of the car, for example, right now, that lion would have a reaction. The reaction would most probably be to run away, because it sees us as the apex predator, even me at 5'8", but if it was threatened sufficiently, what it would do is turn around and run towards us and probably charge, but that wouldn't be a predatory response, it would be a threat response. And so only in very exceptional circumstances would lions attack people to try and eat them. So that's your answer, Erica. I don't feel afraid. That's not to say I don't feel a sense of respect and definite care whenever I'm viewing any of the animals out here, especially elephants and lions and that sort of thing. So I did answer a question a little while back, and our signal cut while I was in the middle of a lengthy treatise, which I think Andrew fell asleep while I was giving. Thanks, Andrew. And that question came from Diane. It's a very interesting one from Wales. Diane, just in case you didn't get it, I'll quickly run through it again. Your question is, if these five male lions take over territory, let's use the Nkuhuma Pride as an example, and some of the females come into estrus and one or two of the males mate, would there be some sort of recognition from the others as to whose cub was whose? The answer is I don't know, I'm not sure, but definitely there is kinship recognition. Now what that means is that there is no competition over it, and so even if one of these lions was the uncle or could be a distant cousin of the cubs that are born to a new pride, they won't show any form of aggression towards those new cubs. So any offspring from within this coalition will be safe from other members of the coalition, and that is most likely because the coalition is related to each other, and so the perpetuation of their genes is achieved even if it's done sort of vicariously through one of the other members of the coalition. But what is also interesting is that in coalitions of unrelated males, which do occur, they're not very common, but they do occur, the same is true. There isn't any sense of aggression, and I suspect that has something to do with the fact that they don't necessarily recognize their own cubs. Thanks, Diane. An excellent question. Right, so I think what we're going to do, everybody, is we're going to nip back to Quarantine, who's feeding now. Magnificent male leopard. What an extremely exciting thing it was to find him last night, and I'm so glad Scott managed to maneuver Wendy back in there this morning. I can tell you it would have taken an enormous effort and no little skill on his part to get back in there. So we're going to go back there. What I'm going to do is head towards the hyena den just to have a quick look, because it's not far from here, and see what's going on there, and then I'm going to come back here. I don't think these lions are going to go anywhere until that buffalo is well and truly finished. So with any luck we'll have them for the next day or two. Alright, back to the leopard, and I will see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and unlike the sleepy lion, Quarantine is still busy feeding, and isn't it interesting how the timing was almost perfect. As they stopped feeding, he started, and he is really making some headway through this carcass now. Having said this though, I think he will certainly be here this afternoon, and that's good prospects for the sunset safari. I doubt he will be able to consume the rest of this kill during the course of the day, and who knows, there's even maybe a very slight chance that he'll be here tomorrow morning. For those of you who were watching earlier, apologies, but I would like to repeat the little story about the Nyala that he almost caught. He was lying down where we found him, about 30 meters away from the tree, and it's common for leopard to go down from the tree when they're not feeding, because it's usually more comfortable there. And an Nyala had stumbled upon him, and it was just meters away when it noticed him, And wouldn't it have been interesting to see not only a duiker hoisted in this tree, but also an inyala? I have on several occasions seen leopards with 2 kills in a similar area, not in the same tree though, in trees next to one another. Well, hello to Insomniac Josh in Connecticut. Good to have you with us. And thanks for sending through your info. He's mentioned that the coyotes in his area will feed on just about everything on a carcass, barring the stomach content and the teeth of their prey. And Josh is wondering whether or not the lions and leopards of this area will act in a similar fashion. And exactly like you said, Josh, they will also only feed on everything other than the stomach content and the teeth, really. Obviously it depends. There are some very large prey animals that are killed whose bones and skulls are too difficult to crush into and consume. But this duiker, I'm sure even the hooves will be consumed, as well as most part of the skull. Just the jaw and that bag of stomach content that has already dropped down to the ground will be left. Wow. Not sure what he's thinking now, because it looks like he is taking a short break, and then thereafter he may make sure that the kill is wedged firmly into a fork of the tree, and then probably come down and rest on the ground. Like I said, it is more comfortable. And his tail is really draped in quite a strange position at the moment, as you all saw. I hope James does get lucky at the hyena den. It's been quite some time since we've been able to show you an update on what's going on there. And I know the last time I went, it sadly was not active. I've yet to see them running around their new home. Now, I'm told large amounts of you are very concerned about the proximity of this leopard to the lion. And fear not, because he is a safe distance away. And even if they were very close by, it's very important to remember that for him to survive to this age, he's learnt how to evade lion. And even though, yes, he could get unlucky and get caught out by them, 9 times out of 10 he will be able to escape them. They're very sneaky animals, the leopards, and we must give them credit for that. Also, like I said earlier, the last time that this leopard was seen, he was on a kudu kill, and we went back one morning to see if we could find him again, and James, who was on tracking team, actually did get a view of the leopard still lurking around that area looking for any scraps that may remain. But what had happened during the course of the night is that the same lion that you're looking at now had obviously smelt that kudu kill, come in and stolen it from him. But he's still okay right here that we can see, and it'll be very often that lion and leopard will interact, and like I said, most of the time the leopards will be able to escape with relative ease. Also, I did, oh, there he's just jumped down, so maybe take a quick look at him before he disappears. Don't go too far up there, Quarantine. I wonder if his next plan would not be to head up towards the Djuma waterhole for a drink. Time will tell. Anyway, we are in the central parts of Djuma, as are the lion. They're just closer to the dam than us. They're north of the dam, we're south of the dam. And I guess another male leopard that a lot of you may be concerned about is young Sindile. And there's been no clear sign of where he is this morning. I know Brent has been searching, but he is quite far off from this action, so he's also safe and there's nothing to be concerned about. Our major concern now is what we are going to do next, because it's going to be tricky for us to get a view of him up there. And what I'm inclined to do is try and actually make some space here for poor old Texan, who's just arrived on the scene at the completely wrong time. As you can all see, the leopard has disappeared, and he's spent a long time getting it's a tricky area to get into because there's no roads nearby and there's a lot of very thick bush. So what I'm going to do is send you back to James, and that way we can try and help Texan and his guests get a quick view of this leopard. See you later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma. Sorry, I think you had to come across to us rather quickly. We're on our way to the hyena den. Don't fear, the lions are not going anywhere. And if you have any questions about them, please feel free to just keep feeding them through. We're just going to have a quick look at the hyena den and see what's going on there, because I did see two hyenas coming away from the kill site this morning, or around where the kill was, so I'm just interested to know what's going on with the dynamics there. So feel free to feed through any questions about the lions if you want to, or any comments, of course. Hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting like a chin spot Battis, or questions at WildEarthTV if you're emailing. Isn't it wonderful to see Quarantine? I had my first meeting with him yesterday. I think he's a magnificent looking creature, nuggly and relaxed, unlike his fairly ornery brother, who is a bit more aggressive and unkind. I think this is the correct entrance. Definitely isn't. Reese, thank you for your comments. You say you love watching lions in the wild, and especially watching all Birmingham boys together. Me too, isn't it wonderful? And you want to know if I've seen any tigers in the wild. Reese, I haven't, I'm afraid. I was in Russia recently evaluating a tiger project on the Siberian or Amur tiger, but unfortunately I didn't manage to see any tigers there. I am hoping against hope that one day I will be able to, though, and perhaps India is the best route to go there. So the hyena den, you can see that green tree there. That's a Scotia brachypatella, or weeping boerbean, and it's sitting on a termite mound, and just beneath it is the hole in which the little hyena has been finding refuge. I've never entered it from this particular part, so I'm not really sure that it is accessible from here. Certainly there is going to be some crunching, so don't spill your drink. I don't see any activity there now. Sorry about that, Andrew. No. This really is not ideal. So I will, once we've come to a halt, I'll tell you how close we are. Sorry, Andrew, just watch out this Fluvia virosa bush. I don't think this is a good idea. I think poor old Jiga is not going to get round that way. Okay, so we're going to go in from the other side. That Flugia verosa, by the way, whiteberry bush, is starting to show signs of spring, which is quite exciting. Now we are, as the crow flies, probably about 400 meters from the lions. So pretty close by, not far away. And these hyenas would unquestionably have heard the kill. Are we right there, Andrew? Or is this a bad idea? So you mean I'm stuck forever? Okay. We may be stuck forever. And that's why I've decided to come through here, just to see what's going on, because the hyenas would definitely have heard the kill going on earlier today. Right. Gosh, there is a huge, astonishing number of twigs and branches here, and that's because the elephants have been in here destroying the bush. Not too hard to walk through, but to maneuver a little vehicle through, not easy. There. I don't think the hyenas are here. We'll just do a little turn around the other side. There's a francolin on top there. You see that, Andrew? Let me go back a bit, sorry. You see there? Is this okay?
Yeah.
So, I'm afraid nothing going on here at the hyena den, but there is a francolin that is sitting there, perched rather precariously, perhaps ignorantly of what exactly it is on top of. Now, we're sitting here at a hyena den, where there are no hyenas, of course. I suspect the little one is probably inside that hole, having a bit of a snooze. Can you see the hole, Andrew, or shall I go back a bit?
Can't see the hole.
Okay, I'll go forward a bit. And Steve, in Texas, while we're sitting with the hyenas, you want to know, with those lions, despite the fact that they are so full, would they still try and defend the kill? And the answer is absolutely. I think if anything were to try and take the kill, be it a vulture, a hyena, a leopard, or a human being, there would be quite a violent reaction from the lions. They look recumbent and unable to move almost. Let's show the hole there, Andrew, and then we'll press on from here. They look like they couldn't possibly move, so full as they are. I mean, they really do look very fat, but you'd be astonished at how quickly they'll get up and move should the need arise. Remember, no animal out here can afford ever to be immobile, because there is always the threat. And then, I mean, we're sitting looking at this termite mound seemingly empty, and an interesting question from Lisa about whether or not the hyenas would move the cub from here because of the presence of the lions. Lisa, I don't think so. You know, there are lions around these cubs all the time, or around the dens, and they're specially adapted to dig into places where no lion would be able to get. So I don't think that they would move unless there was an exceptional amount of pressure from lions in this area. You know, there are lions coming through here all the time. We just had a dearth in the last 7 days or so, but they're coming through here. The other den was extremely obvious. We've seen leopard and lion tracks going past it. So no, they won't move it in relation to the Birmingham boys. Now, it would seem that the signal is back on Wendy. Quarantine is in a, I think, functional state, and if he isn't, then Scott will tell you about it. So while I try and extricate myself from the windy, impenetrable hyena den forest, we are going to head back to the lions. You're going to go back to Scott, and I'll see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and I got a little bit lost, to be honest, and that's why we're turning around quickly, but we are on our way to try and get you another view of quarantine. We moved out of the riverbed so that we could make sure our friend Texan, one of the Djuma guides, had an opportunity to squeeze his guests in and have a view, and I know he certainly would have done exactly the same thing had it been us arriving in that unfortunate scenario. As he managed to get into the right area, the leopard came down the tree and made it a little bit more tricky for him to see. But from this road that we're going down now, Twin Dams Road, which if we turned right now would take us up to the Djuma Dam, and it's not far from here, maybe a quarter of a mile. And I just would like to tell you that because you'll have a good idea of how close we are exactly. He's just down about 100 meters or so on our left-hand side. And as I did mention earlier, there's quite a strong chance that he could go for a drink during the course of the day at the Djuma waterhole. So whoever the zoomer is and whoever's watching, keep your eyes peeled. Even though the Birmingham Coalition are nearby, I'm guessing their water source is going to be the small little waterhole in front of the Gallagher camp, where we often see elephants drinking. So I don't think they will entertain you at the dam between drives. And as I said before you got to the hyena den with James, I really was hoping that you would get a glimpse of them. It's been quite some time now, but the new den site, as you all well aware, is quite difficult to access. And who knows, maybe like James says, the clan will feel the need to move the cub from that area now that the lions are camped out so close by. But I must say, on the same note, that I have seen tracks of lion going into den sites, and the adults will know that full well that those lions would have come there, that they don't move their cubs, so it's not something that will always happen. Ooh, bit of a tricky spot. I'm just going to have to reverse a tiny bit to get by in a gap. Probably as good as it's going to get. Hello, boy. Good to see you back on comfortable ground again, as you didn't seem like you had the easiest meal in terms of comfort, but now you can relax again. Now, a question that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in getting to the bottom of is how much Djuma and quarantine have grown. I know Jennifer all the way in Missouri has been watching the show for many months now, and she remembers back in February and March when we almost used to see this leopard and his brother daily. They were the main source of leopard sightings back then. And isn't it interesting how it changes, Jennifer? Now, I'm not sure how much he would have grown. It's difficult to say, but I think he is definitely growing. Well, he has to be. He's still going to grow considerably larger than what he is. But very difficult for me to answer that question. In terms of weight, maybe he's put on an extra 5 or so kilograms, 10 pounds in the last 6 months. And it'll be over the next 2 years that he continues to grow. So even though he's approaching 3 years of age, he will continue to get bigger for the next 2 years. But growth will certainly slow down, and the fastest growth I've recognized and remembered in leopards is within their first 2 years, and thereafter it starts tapering off. But it is important to remember that his head and body and shoulders are going to continue growing. He's nowhere near fully grown, even though he is independent. A very tricky thing with leopards and lions and all animals, I guess, is that the weights of them will vary hugely depending on the area, and male leopards can vary from anywhere from 60 kilograms, very light, to about 100 kilograms. So I think we have had the majority of the fun that was going to be had with this male leopard this morning, and as you can see, he's fast asleep now, just finished consuming a healthy portion of that duiker. So we're going to carry on and see if we can find you any more animals to try and put the cherry on the top of what's been already an incredible sunrise safari. And credit must go to James, because if it wasn't for him hearing those lions early hours of this morning, I'm sure we would have got your updates, and those are always useful. But the great thing about James hearing is that he got a very good idea as to where exactly the action went down, and it's very difficult for you guys to pick up where the audio is coming off Djuma or cam. And who knows, maybe in the coming months it'll be the Birmingham Coalition who managed to take down a buffalo on a live drive. It did happen in November last year. Interestingly enough, they were feeding on a buffalo at the time that another breeding herd of buffalo came in to the area feeding, not knowing that those lions were nearby with another buffalo that they had killed the night before. And they got up, left the buffalo that they were feeding on, and managed to take down another buffalo. So a good example of how opportunistic predators can be, and how they will take any opportunities that are given to them. Speaking of buffalo, it looks like we found the large bachelor herd that moves around Djuma. There's usually about 30 to 40 of them in this herd, and maybe we can have a moment or two in silence. They are incredibly wonderful animals, and sadly there's one less on Djuma, but it is part of the natural cycle. But I think it is important to remember that We're not celebrating the death of any one animal for the benefits of another, but it is necessary, so let's just take a moment to enjoy watching these guys. What I would love is if we can definitely confirm that the old and weak buffalo that was seen at the Djuma waterhole a couple of days ago was in fact the one that the Birmingham boys got a hold of. I know that is the speculation at this stage.
Hello everybody, welcome back to this sighting of the magnificent Birmingham clearly male lions. Thank you for that, Andrew. We've got 3 of them here lying in a little carpet, and the other one, the scar-faced male, is just to the other side, and then the buffalo is sort of in between them, starting to smell very nicely ripe as the African sun starts to heat up the innards that remain. I have not seen the 5th one. I don't know that he's come back across the road unless he's actually at the carcass now, which is possible. We haven't had a look. I just came in here to try and see these 3. But they are all 5 around. So in case you've just joined us, 5 male lions killed a buffalo this morning, and we heard it bellowing in horrible distress at about 4:30 this morning. It woke me. And also, we think that there may have been some hyenas involved because they were calling quite loudly. And then we did see 2 of them go off or sort of towards quarantine clearings while we were looking for the lions. So quite interesting that. And whether or not those hyenas had anything to do with attracting the lions to the buffalo, I'm not really sure. Sorry, I was just set upon there by a fly. Now the flies, we had a lovely question earlier about why there were no flies on the buffalo, simply because it hadn't heated up enough yet. The flies are going to descend onto that carcass as the day progresses, and there will be a great proliferation of them. That was from Gary. Thanks, Gary. You can see that panting, and that's not because it's hot yet. It's still probably maybe 21 degrees in the shade, so it's pretty cool. That's probably about 60, almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And that panting is simply a function of the fact that the belly is so full. And so they've eaten themselves into a stupor, and as Marla says, a meat-induced coma. Certainly that is imminent. And while they are full now, they will keep eating that buffalo until it's finished, unless, they're called away to sort of defend territory or set up territory, as they're doing at the moment. So a buffalo like this will probably last them 2 days or so, maybe a bit longer. But then how long will it sustain them? And that's your question, Jennifer. How long will it sustain them? They could easily go 7 days without eating again, quite easily. And they'll start to look a bit skinny after that length of time. And they seem to be pretty efficient hunters, so they probably won't go that length of time without eating again. But they could easily sustain themselves for 7 days. And if they absolutely had to, probably even longer than that. And we had a lot of questions about the cleaning earlier, and whether they clean themselves and how they get that blood off them. Well, there is the example of what they do. That lion was just cleaning himself, licking his paw, just like your house cat would, and then wiping his face with his paw. And his paw, which, in case you're wondering, is roughly the size of a dinner plate. I mean, it is not a small appendage to his leg. These are big animals. watching the tongue licking there, very rough, obviously, like sort of steel wool. There's another one coming through here, Andrew. I don't know if you can see it. Zai, you'd like to know how long a lion's tongue is. Zai, I've got absolutely no idea. I could try and sort of guess for you. If you look at my hands, a lion's tongue from tip to base is probably about that long, I guess. Quite long, really. Hey, Andrew? Quite a long tongue. You can just start to feel that incredible intensity that we had this morning, where there was roaring, there was bellowing of buffalo, the hyena were shouting, and as we came live, there were birds starting to call and Franklin yelling, and Andrew sneezing continuously, and bless you, Andrew. Now that intensity is waned completely. It's got quite warm quite quickly. The lions are now fast asleep, not feeding anymore. And there's a general sense of that mid-morning lull that overcomes the low veld, especially as we go into September and October, which are normally very hot months with not much in the way of rain. Here comes another lion. There he is, Andrew. You got him.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting discussion going on about their size. Suzanne, you say, wow, because how big will their ultimate mass be? And because they're not at ultimate mass yet. They will only reach that when they're about 6 to 8 years old. And Christy, you say that they already look very big. Now, this is partly true. Well, it's not actually. I'm just going to give you a few comparisons, and then I'm going to talk you through the human psychology behind this. It's quite interesting. And I've done it before, but it should be reiterated while we're looking at these male lions, or a bush, as Andrew has decided to show us. Thank you, Andrew. The interesting thing is that, first of all, they're not unusually large for their age at all. They're in fact they're pretty average sized. That's not to say they're not big, but they are average sized for lions. Junior, I was looking at the other day, and I think he's actually carrying a bit more mass than some of these guys. I think he is a little bit taller, and I think he's a little bit bulkier too. Now, the Matimbas are definitely bigger than these lions, and that's simply because they are older. These lions will get bigger, and they'll get older, they'll fill out, they'll get a little bit taller, and of course, the bigger the mane on a lion, the bigger it tends to look. Now, so that's the sort of ultimate size that they are. Now, what's really interesting to me, and I've heard this 100 times, the first time anyone sees a male lion, their first reaction is to say, wow, that lion is so, Andrew?
Big.
So big. Everyone does it. I did it. I bet Andrew's first reaction when he saw a lion was, gee, that's a big animal. It is a big animal. But in relation to each other, they're not that much bigger. They're the same size as other lions. In fact, they might even be slightly smaller, but they're about average size. The same thing happens when people see a male leopard. They say, wow, he's big, when they have no basis of saying that. They have no way to compare the sizes. And it's a typically human phenomenon. We all do it, and I don't really know why. I think it's because we associate sort of heroism and the kind of warrior archetype with size, and we want these lions to, we put on them our kind of human emotion of the heroic warrior. It's a big male lion We've obviously all been imbued with the culture of the Lion King, and I mean the Lion King came from our original impressions of lions as these noble big beasts, and so that's basically where this comes from, I think. They're not unusually large, like I say. Then when we look at females, always, and it's true so much of the time, but when you look at a female leopard, Andrew, what's the first reaction there? She is so? No? She's so beautiful.
Beautiful, yes.
Always, she's so beautiful. Same with lions, same with at least with lionesses. And we don't tend to judge the females on their size, we tend to judge them on their looks, and the males we judge on their size. And I think it's a very interesting human phenomenon, that. Yeah. So thank you for those questions, Christy. Very interesting. All right, just as we've got a few more minutes left, Scott just had a wonderful morning. We're just going to hand you back to him quickly. He's got some elephants, which is wonderful this time of the day, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and we're just looping ahead quickly to get you a good view of some elephant that we found right at the end. So we did manage to get the cherry on the top, and our decision to leave quarantine has paid off. Just going to stop here. Got a few youngsters on their way right past us. Good morning. This one's passed in front of us, the other one, a slightly larger bull, moved off behind the vehicle, and I can see a cow and a calf which should just be coming into your frame shortly. So a breeding herd of elephants with all different shapes and sizes. They're quite spread out, and we actually followed one young bull alone for quite some time before he led us to the rest of the herd. And aren't we all so lucky to have been treated to an incredible morning? Oh, what I just noticed is that it looks like the female that's missing the end of her trunk. That is the one that you can see disappearing off there, and a lot of you will know her. And it really is interesting how her and her two offspring of different ages quite often move alone, just the three of them, but will join up with other herds from time to time. And I'm guessing that's the three of them there, mother and two different offspring. Lots of fork-tailed drongos flying around them, catching the insects that the elephants chase up, which you would have got a glimpse of. I think three of them were flying in and around that elephant there. Great, well, what a morning it's been. Sadly, it has drawn to a close, so it's time for me to say goodbye. And thank you for following and sending all your questions. I'm sure you've enjoyed the safari. How could you have not? It's been action-packed and so good to have the Birmingham Coalition back on the property. It's been quite some time that we managed to show you some lion, and who better than those beautiful big males. Thanks, Brian, for your camera work, and to Nikki and Tara, who are in the final control room. It's been a great drive, and we're going to send you back to James now for the last few minutes. It'll be Brent and myself out this afternoon.
Hello everybody, welcome back. the lions have just lain down, but I got to tell you, Andrew and my heart rates are now sitting a little bit above normal because I don't know what it was, a fly or a bird or something made them sit up with such speed. And we had a question earlier about how are they able to sort of function when they're so full and fat and seemingly recumbent. Well, the reaction speed is still quite astonishingly frightening. So they're absolutely able to react at a speed that would certainly make your toes curl and make your heart speed with an incredible pace. What a wonderful drive we've had. An incredible morning started waking me up with bleary-eyed, with buffalo bellowing. That buffalo unfortunately has now met its end. Its contribution to the world of the living is now at an end. And it is now contributing, of course, to the lives of these wonderful 5 Birmingham male lions who are now in the flush of youth and about to take over this territory. Thank you, Andrew, on camera today. I know that you sneezed excessively, but thank you very much for your efforts. A big thank you to Scott and a big well done for finding quarantine again, and Brian on the other vehicle, and of course a big thanks to Nikki and Tara, the old hands in the directing seats in final control today. Naturally, the most important contributors to this, as always, have been you. There have been some wonderful questions, some wonderful comments, and I thank you for them. We're just going to have a last look at these Birmingham lions before we leave you. This afternoon, I think it will be Scott and Brent on drive, so we'll come and check how the lions are doing, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere soon. So wherever you are on our blue planet, I hope you have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it happens to be. Keep safe, and we'll see you later this afternoon.